Welcome back to Beginner's Breadboards, my electronics learning journey. Today we're looking at a simple traffic light state machine using the Arduino. So the goal of this is to build a very simple traffic light, an intersection between two roads. And so we do this through the code. It's called a state machine. And so the different states are, let's say, a green light, a yellow light, red light, or we have a left turn light here. So the different parts we're including in this is we just have a simple intersection between what we're calling one main street and then one side street. And so what we are doing here is that the main street will always have priority. So we're attaching or would attach a sensor to this to detect when there's actually a car on the side street to change the state. The main street also has a left turning arrow light on it. So that's another element we included here. And so the side street signal will only turn green when the sensor is sensing that, like, let's say a car there, but on the breadboard we have something a little different. And so its default state is the main street signal is green if there's no traffic on the side street. The left turn arrow would also be blinking at that point. So this is the diagram of the model intersection that we have. So these lanes are the main street, and then these are the side streets with both of their individual traffic lights. For the left turn arrow, we're showing this as a blue LED since we don't have a blinking arrow for an LED. So that's just a blue LED. But generally, this is the kind of intersection we're trying to emulate with this state machine. The best way to look and think of the different states and what we have to do within the code is just a simple Excel spreadsheet. So we have this organized by the state number, what the present state's name is, and then a binary code for each of those states. Now we just put this in here, but when we actually code it, the computer will create this itself through a special function in the Arduino IDE code. So we don't really need to worry about this. Then we want to look at the traffic sensor input, so what the sensor is saying. And then this is just showing which LEDs are high and which are low. So ones are for the main road, so red, yellow, green, and twos are for the side road. And then you want to see what the next state is going to be, so what it needs to move to. So the different states we have are main green, and we have two here that say main green, but we're just looking at what is the different sensor input. So if there's no sensor input, it'll just remain as main green because that has priority. But if there is a sensor input, it is going to change to main yellow, then red, and then we'll go down this list when there is a sensor input, but it'll only do that when the time for the main green has elapsed, and we can show that in the code later. So this is the code for this project. It's a little bit of a longer code, but we're also using an OLED display screen here on the breadboard to show which state we're in or which traffic light is on. So that also makes the code a little larger. For that display, we have to include some libraries. We're using Adafruit libraries here for that OLED display screen. We have to define some stuff with that, but that's just for that screen. We just set our pins here. And so this is that function that actually makes that binary code for each of the different states. It's enum, which stands for enumeration. So we list all of our different states here, and that's kind of the way the computer does it for you, so you don't have to manually input all of that. We're also just defining some time for how long each of the traffic lights are going to stay on for, so the main green, main left, reds and yellows and all of that. So when we actually get started in the code, this is called switch and case. So this is what allows us to change between those different states there. So we have our current state. And so dependent on what the current state is, it'll go to that case and then go through all of that. So this is the case for the main green. So if main green is the current state, it'll go through here. And then this is where the only place where we have the if digital read for the sensor. And if the sensor is high, it'll make the current state main yellow. But if the sensor is not high, it'll stay at main green. And so here we're just setting each of the LEDs to what they need to be. And then after we're done with that, we say break, and then that puts the code back up to this switch, which will be a new current state. So if that sensor pin were to be high, it would change over to the main yellow, which has all of the different LEDs and what it is. It breaks again, goes to main red. And so at the end of each of these, the current state updates to the next state that it needs to go to. So we just keep scrolling down and we see each of those states are defined here with its case and then afterwards a break. And so that's just how the code works with that. And then at the end here, this is the code that allows us to print what state we're on onto the screen there. So this is its own function, which allows that screen, the OLED display, to work. This is the project built onto the breadboard. So we have our 4 LEDs, which are the traffic light for the main street. The blue light is the left turn arrow. And then these 3 LEDs, which represent the traffic light for the side street. Now for this, we didn't actually put like a real motion sensor on the project. We're just having a button here, so we'd give it a manual input, but on a real traffic light, obviously it would be an actual sensor. And then this is the OLED display that's showing what the current state is. So this is the default state for main green, where the left turn arrow is also blinking. And so if we provide the sensor input, the state machine will work and start to change between the different states. So we just saw it change and now it's on side green. And it'll go back to side yellow, side red, and then main left, and then to main green, which is now the default state. And so it'll again look for the sensor input. So if we hold it down, once the time for that elapses, it'll go through its cycle again.